Good afternoon and happy Sabbath, everybody. Good to be here again. I'm going to go ahead and start with a story. This is about I forget the guy's name. My wife thought it was Howard and Tina, but it wasn't. They went to Israel several years ago, and they were on this bus going doing their sightseeing and things. And they noticed every time there was a soldier on the side of the road, the bus driver would pull over and pick the soldier up. And when the soldier got on the bus, they would say something in Hebrew, and then he'd go sit down. It happened 2 or 3 times. And one of the church members that was sitting right behind the bus driver, after seeing that happen 2 or 3 times, he asked the bus driver, what were you guys saying? And the bus driver said, what they were saying to each other is, remember the Amalekites. If we go back into Genesis 16, start with the story of Abraham, Sarah, Hagar, and Ishmael. We know that story. And in Genesis 16:12, New King James Version, this is speaking of Ishmael. He shall be a wild man. He shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And when Ishmael was 13 years old, he and Hagar departed. And there was actually a lot of conflict in that time. Ishmael was Abraham's firstborn son, so he loved him. And once Sarah gave birth to Ishmael, there was infighting between not only the children, but the handmaid and Sarah. So then it gets into the lineage of the Amalekites, which was Amalek, the grandson of Esau. This is in the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia. This is the definition of Amalek or Amalekite. A tribe dwelling originally in the region south of Judah, the wilderness of Etah, Paran, south of Edom, which is in southwest Jordan. And once they started moving around, there were Bedouin groups and tribes, and they roamed. They didn't have any place to lay their head. They were just nomads, basically. In Exodus 17:8, it states, then Amalek came and fought against Israel in Rephidim. This is the wilderness of Sin and the wilderness of Sinai. Verse 9, so Moses said to Joshua, choose men for us and go out, fight against Amalek. Tomorrow I will station myself on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. So they had already started warring back and forth. And then in Exodus 17:16, and he said, the Lord has sworn. I found when I was doing this research on this, I found this interesting. The Lord will have war against Amalek from generation to generation. So I thought that was interesting. It's the Lord himself who's having this war. We see what's going on over in the Middle East, over in Israel, and the stuff that Hamas has been parading around and showing on TV. I saw a couple of things. It was just, I can't get it out of my mind. It's so horrendous. And they pride themselves on it. They call home to mom and dad, guess what we did? Look at this. And they just, the congratulations to each other. And I was watching on the news the other day, this he must have been 7 or 8 year old kid. And he was so angry, and he was just saying, we'll fight you, we'll kill you. They're raised from infants. It's that lineage, they just, all the way from way, way back to now, it just keeps interweaving through the history of the world, basically, because it's not just the tribe of Judah over there, the Israelites, that are having to deal with this. And then in Deuteronomy 25:17, I won't go into all of that, but at the end of 19, It says, you shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. You must not forget. So this goes way back to Deuteronomy in the Old Testament. And then 1 Samuel 15:2, Saul is king and he's supposed to wipe them all out. And we all know the story. He doesn't wipe them all out. And because of that, the world has to deal with these people still today. And it states in verse 3, go now and strike Amalek and utterly destroy all that he has. And do not spare him, but put to death both man and woman, child and infant, ox, sheep, cattle, and donkey. So everything was to be annihilated. And the reason God wanted that, they were so vile, they were so evil, it was actually a loving thing for God to request that that be done. Basically put them out of their misery. And then in Samuel 15:7, so this goes in and talks about, so Saul defeated the Amalekites, but he spared the king. And then because of that, we start seeing the Amalekites are going back and they're fighting with Israel, over and over, here and there. And this is when they started setting up together. They would fight together. They would bring their tribes together, the Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Canaanites, and Moabites. The Amalekites would bring them all in to help them fight Israel. And then in Judges 3:13 it states, the Amalekites, were also associated with the Midianites in their raids upon Israel. And Judges 6:3, and the Amalekites, seemed to have gained a foothold in Ephraim. So this was one of the times when they started getting to where they were actually had some success over the Israelites. And then we know the story with Saul. In the end, it was the Amalekite that helped kill Saul. I don't know if he fell on a sword by himself or he committed suicide, but he was boasting about it. And then we go on further down ahead in the lineage, we get into the book of Esther. In the book of Esther, there's this gentleman, Haman. He's an Agagite. He comes from that lineage of the King Agag. And he's devising schemes. This is back in the Persian conquest and approximately 500 years afterwards. And the Arabic definition of Haman is zeal, strength, bravery. So what we saw on October 7th was nothing close to any of zeal, strength, or bravery. Now the Hebrew definition, on the other hand, is violence, extreme wickedness. Excuse me. Then I went back and started doing a little bit of research on going back a little bit to Haman's grandfather. I like to find out, what the father's all about to have a kid like this. And his grandfather's name was Hammedatha, Hammodatha, Hammedatha. And the meaning of that name is he that troubles the law. And then Hamas, what I found interesting too, is Hamas is in the Bible. Some speculate, I've read where it's 4 times up to 40 times, I don't know, by different translations and things. But the first time in the Old Testament, it states that Hamas in the Old Testament is most frequently translated as violence. So, in the first place in the Bible that the word Hamas appears is way back in the first book of Genesis, 6:11 and 13. And the verse that it's referring to is verse 11. The earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. That word there, violence, back to the original, is Hamas. So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all the flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And I was talking with Howard on the way down here, and it's like, so if the Noah's Ark was built, and it was just for the family of Noah, we could probably consider that all the rest of the world were Hamas. They were wicked. And we see it now, more than ever again, since this incident in October, and we see it in America, in England, where these college students are just basically having protests praising Hamas. They're praising violence. So we're back in the same time back of Noah, where the whole world is full of violence. And then this is when God said to Noah, "The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence throughout them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth." And the summary of this message, brethren, is remember the Amalekites.